Auto boys and girls, yes, it's Nicko here and David with you from Metal Sticks. Yes, but we're not really with you, are we? Because we're leaving a message for you. But if you would like to leave a message for us, go ahead, and we may or may not get back to you, depending on how we feel. Goodbye.
Metal fans, are you ready? Welcome to
Metal Sticks!
the show you've been waiting for. We celebrate heavy metal. Across our episodes, we're unleashing interviews with icons. Our Roll with Nicko, a deep dive into the stories behind each snare in Nicko's collection, as well as other Iron Maiden memorabilia. And to wrap it all up, Wear, Tear, and Care, where Nicko shares his tips to keep your drums sounding and working at their best. Today on Metal Sticks, Charlie Benante. He's not just the iconic drummer of one metal band, he's an iconic drummer of two metal bands, Anthrax and Pantera, of course. He's just played and produced on The Violent Hour, a new group by his fiancée Carla. He's up to so many things. He's an incredible guy, an incredible drummer. And Nicko, you and Charlie go back a long way.
Yeah, man. We go back to, I think, Anthrax tour with us in late 84. Yeah.
It's a long time
It's
ago.
a long
You've
time
known him
ago.
since
Yeah,
then. Guys, check it out. Here we go with Charlie Benante on Metal Sticks.
Hello, Charlie.
Oh, you look awesome.
Good to see you, though, Charlie. It's ever so nice to have you join us today. Thanks very much for giving us your time, mate.
I came to talk about one of my favorite records that you played on, of course.
Goodness gracious me.
Oh.
Well, that's a blast from the past. Let me see, when was that? 1981, somewhere around that time, I think. Yeah, oh my goodness, mate. So I think I was like 12 foot up in the air on a riser that I did the whole show from. It didn't rise up and down. It was the only thing that went up and down was that they had a front, like for the bulldozer, the skip at the front of a bulldozer. So when the band took to the stage, you know, they could walk on behind this so-called, this thing went up in the air like this into the lighting truss. God knows how they did it. We did that record at Polar Studios in Sweden. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, ABBA.
I'm glad you like that album, Charlie.
This record in particular, because I knew about you with Pat Travers before Trust, and I loved your playing on with Pat Travers. And then when I heard this, it was like you took it up to the next level. And then, of course, when you joined Maiden, it was another level. So it was just your progression in drumming and your style and just the way you approached it. The songs was just so perfect, you know?
Thank you. That's lovely words coming from your good self, sir. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Tell us how you fell into get the gig with Pantera.
The Pantera gig came about. I was just very, very close to them throughout the years, and especially close to Darrell, Dimebag, and I think Philip and Rex really wanted to do something again with the legacy that is Pantera, and just celebrate the life and the music of them. Philip called me and said, "Would you be into doing this?" And they didn't want anyone else. It was always me that they wanted to do this, which I felt very honored by that. And I just jumped at it, and I'm like, yes, I want to do this, because the love that goes back for me with these guys, it goes back a long, long time ago. I mean, I met Darrell and Vinnie when, God, like 1985. So we've known each other since then. And I just loved hearing that I was the only choice that they wanted for this position. First show we did was Mexico City. That was December of 22, I believe. Man, I was so nervous. And you know this, because playing Mexico City, they are so passionate there. You know, when Maiden plays, it's just like a spiritual event, you know what I mean? So I was very nervous. It was 52 degrees outside. We were freezing. The intro came on and started, and I'm just like, okay, this is it. Let's go, you know? And then once we kicked into the first song, I kind of settled down,
Yeah.
but man, you like the first show of a tour, uh, you're jittery. You don't know, you just don't know what to expect. And then I was so happy that I just kind of settled in and just, kind of wrote it out and it was just beautiful.
Did you have a lot of rehearsal time with the guys before you did your first show?
Yeah. I mean, for me, what I did, as soon as I knew I was doing it, I took like 4 songs, and every week I would approach 4 songs, just, working on those 4. Next week, I would do the next 4, because I just wanted to know every little nuance that, Vinnie played in the songs. And a lot of times I was overplaying. I was doing way more um, than I should be doing. A good friend of mine, Thomas Lang, who I know you guys know, I was with Thomas and I was talking to him about it. And I'm like, I feel like I'm overplaying. And he listened and he's like, yeah, you are. You're overplaying. It's more simple than you think it is. So that kind of put me in a different state of mind, and I just started to flow and just learn Vinny's little nuances and just his little tricks that he would do, and that was it. Because the most important thing is I wanted it to sound like Pantera. I didn't want it to sound like me playing Pantera. I wanted, when people close their eyes, oh, it sounds like Pantera, and that was my goal.
I was wondering, when you first met Dime and Vinny and you go back to the early days, what do you remember about that? What was that like? Because that is, in the heyday of when heavy metal is really starting to turn into the format. When we're in the 80s, that's like when metal shines brightest and is actually a top 40 format, and these other mainstream stays. That now it's in its own niche and it's still massive, but that was like a heyday.
Yeah.
And so what do you remember from then, and what kind of, what can you share about that?
I mean, back then in the mid '80s, a band like us, we were uh, still trying to get to that next level. You know what I mean? And Nicko will relate to this. The fact that MTV at the time was this day's TikTok. Um, you hope to get your videos on MTV played during the day and not at 2 in the morning. You know what I mean? And then, of course, they gave a show to Hard Rock and Metal, which was Headbangers Ball, which was like, that was the savior. That really helped a lot of bands to get exposure. The amount of records that you would sell back then just from MTV exposure was ridiculous. It was insane. But it helped so much. It's like that time to me was some of the best times for hard rock music and metal. I mean, Iron Maiden was the band in the '80s. Let's. Of course, we all know this, but for us, I think a lot of the bands, like myself, our band, even Metallica, and a lot of those bands, Maiden were like the model. That's what we wanted to be like, and I think a lot of bands took a lot of what Iron Maiden did and did it that way. Um, just the aesthetic, the way it looked. Iron Maiden did it the right way, and it was like, for Maiden, it was an album sold was a ticket sold. They never worried about radio play, and that's the one thing that we started to realize. Like, we don't need to worry about radio play. The fans are there. You just have to reach them. And like I said, MTV was a huge help with that.
What do you think about the job of your managers in that respect? I mean, if you've got good, I mean, Maiden have always had great manager. Well, we have 2 of them. We actually got 3 now. But, in the early days, Rod and Andy were managing the band from 79 onwards. I'm bringing that up because how do you feel that their responsibility of nurturing a band with the visuals, with the way that, your logo with Anthrax is that funny little guy, with the little chops and that. Do you think that the success that you achieve as a band is down to a really good manager?
I think the most important assets of having a band and going through your career, your manager is very important. Your lawyer is very important. And
Doyle, what's that?
Sorry.
and of course, your business manager. You need a good business manager because a lot of times back in the day, man, you know, they dangle the carrot, and most bands are like, I want to do this. So they'll just take it and not worry about what they're signing. They'll sign away. We've all heard the horror stories. We've seen the behind the music of a band just signs away everything, and then they come up with nothing. We had a great manager back in the day, Johnny Zazula and Marcia. They looked after us, and we did this together. We all built it up together. And it's very much like the Maiden Rod Smallwood thing. Rod Smallwood was like the big manager. Everybody was like Rod Smallwood. I mean, Maiden would have singles about him. You know what I mean? So he was a big he was a big part of the Iron Maiden machine. And he still is. But I think nowadays, I don't know if it's the same, but I do know that a good lawyer and a good business manager is key to your success, because you need someone to watch out for you, because most of the time, you're busy doing your gig, and you don't always pay attention to the little things that come to hurt you later on.
Yeah, very true, Charlie. I was gonna say, we're as musicians, we're not business. I'm not a businessman, although I try and think I can negotiate. But I have Rod and Andy behind me, and a guy called Dave Shacks, or Dave Shackleton, and there's a team of people that deal with that kind of stuff. Obviously, once you start to get to a certain level, there's a different set of parameters and rules, and the tours get bigger, the logistics get bigger. But at the beginning, for people like that are watching us today, it's important for them to know that you need someone to look after you. Usually it can be a friend, a mate of the band, when you're starting off and you practicing in the garage, and you have the dream, and you have the passion to do what you want to do. And somebody will come and take over for you, or you can get somebody who's already established. But it's very important to have that kind of person behind you. And we've been fortunate, and I'm sure, in the early days of Anthrax too, to have people that, Rod was like, when we were a 5-piece, he was the 6th member of the band. He had that passion that we had, but he wanted to see us make, we're going to have the biggest metal band in the world, that was his dream. And I think he did a pretty good job of achieving that dream that he had.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so, I think it's important for kids starting out to have somebody that can kind of be a babysitter in that respect. And then if they're not negotiate on the band's behalf, they can learn that as you move down, as you progress to the bigger gigs, going from pubs and clubs to a theater and that sort of thing,
It's very important. And the thing that the advice that I'd give to younger bands, I always tell them to go where the love is. Don't go where the check is, or you think the check is going to be, because at the end of the day, the love will stay with you before the person with the check will, and that's how Anthrax is now. We've had the same core for quite a long time. Same with Iron Maiden. You have the same people, and I think it's very important to go where the love is.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's the person that has that passion. People say, "Oh, how do you trust somebody with those kind of money that's coming in?" Well, yeah, you do. You have a trust. That doesn't come into question for me, and I know it doesn't come into question for any of the other guys in the band. There's a trust element. That person he's been with the band 46, 47 years. I've actually known Rod since 1975, so we're old souls together. But yeah, I actually met Rod. He was taking care of Cockney Rebel. He was taking care of tour managing them, and we were in New York, and we met in a closet. Instead of coming out of the cupboard or out of the closet, we were going in. for obvious reasons that will probably be self-explanatory, you boys and girls. What are you doing going in your closet? Anyway. 1975, that was at Bottom Line. We did the Bottom Line. I was with Streetwalkers and we did their first American tour together. But, it's very important to have somebody, as you said, somebody who has the love and the passion for what you do and believes in you.
I have a question for you about that period of time compared to, let's say, the way the 80s kicked in, the late 80s. When you were touring back in 75, what was your equipment like? Did you change your head all the time, or you left them on?
No, that's a great question. No, the answer to that is I was touring with a Heyman 5-piece drum set.
Your earliest kits.
Yeah, and I actually still have it, Charlie. It was the second drum set I ever bought. Yeah, and
Wow.
it was a silver Heyman. There was a guy called George Heyman that made these drum sets over here, and he painted the shell inside. It was called a Vibrasonic shell because of the paint that he used. I don't know, it was some kind of a special, Vibrasonic paint. Anyway, I went and bought this drum. I was looking for a Ringo kit. I went, I've got to go and buy this Ringo kit, and we had a Melody Maker. I think it was a Melody Maker at that time. It had just come out, and it had these, this like section in the back of it, gear for sale. And there was a shop called Top Gear in Denmark Street, which was very famous. It was called Tin Pan Alley. And I don't know, do you remember a show called The Old Grey Whistle Test back in England? Did you guys play that?
No, we never played it. No.
Anyway, so that show was the Old Grey Whistle Test. Was apparently all the publishers had their offices in Denmark Street, and so if you went in and showed somebody a piece of sheet music and trying to get a publishing deal, and the pianist played it, and then he left, if the guy remembered the song and started whistling it, that was called the Old Grey Whistle Test, and therefore you got a publishing deal, right? That's a little bit of trivia and history for you. Anyway, so moving back to the drum kit and the question, I bought this drum set. I walked into this shop. It was in the basement. You had to go down these stairs, and I opened the door, and there was this Heyman drum set on a 6-inch little platform with these two lights shining on it. It was a silver kit. It looked like a spaceship. I thought, I've never seen anything like it in my life. And basically, the nut boxes were a Camco copy, the old Camco, which was then, as we know, ended up being DW. So anyway, the Ludwig Super Classic was sitting on the left-hand side as he walked in the shop. I didn't even see it. And I went straight to this Heyman kit. Anyway, it was silver. And then when I joined Streetwalkers, we rehearsed it. Roger Chapman turned around and said, "Nick, can you get your kit painted?" I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, we're going to have all white back line. So all white Marshalls, Ampeg, the bass gear, whatever the amplifier that the keyboard player was using, and speaker." And he said, "Can you get your kits painted?" And I got it painted by the guy that did Carl Palmer's drum set. That made the stainless steel kit. Yeah. He painted out, I forget the name of the guy. And he took, so I took that kit on tour. But to answer your question, I think I didn't ever change the drum heads unless I broke one.
It's not something you necessarily did after a few shows. You just left. Like, I look at old pictures of the Beatles, and Ringo's snare drum just looks like it's been on there since '62. You know what I mean? It was now '67.
Yeah, it's all Bray in the middle of the ambassador codish. Yeah, or a cast. Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have endorsement deals in those. They kind of, this was early days. I think, I moved into an endorsement with, which I thought I had with Piesty back in 76, 77, after I left Streetwalkers, because I was always a Piesty man, which I know you are, and you have a love for that brand as well, Charles. Back in 75, 76, that, endorsement deals were unheard of,
And we based our head changes on economics as much as sound. Absolutely. As gigging drummers in the early days, you just until they just don't have any tone left or they're broken, it's just like, okay, all right, we got to change them now. But otherwise, it's expensive to change heads if you're not, in a gig that's successful.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I remember it was like Christmas when I would put a new set of heads on the drums. It was just like, this is the greatest. It sounds so great again,
Yeah. Plus the actual reaction of the stick off the head was good. It was you got a bit more whip back from it. It's like, whoa.
And I remember you used to use the silver dot, which they were so. I mean, I used them too back in the day because of you. You used them, and I was like, wow, these things they sound so great. Because let's face it, back then it was either you use a black dot or you used a hydraulic head, or those were the heads, or an ambassador. And then as time went on, I don't know when the changing point happened when we all started changing our heads.
Well, I went. So when I was using the silver dot Ludwigs,
The rockers.
yeah, the rockers, yeah, for forever, from back in Pat's days. I did have the CS Clear black spots for a while, but the Ludwig rockers were my absolute favorite drum head for the tom-toms. Absolutely, I loved them. So then Sonar, because I was using Sonar from 76 onwards, 77, putting it straight out with Pat, and that's a story in itself. Sonar were making their own drum heads. So it took a number of years. I think it was probably towards like 1990, somewhere, towards the end of that period of 1989, that when I went with the Sonar drum head. And then I went with Premier after I left Sonar. And then Premier had the Rod Morgenstein head. So I went, oh, okay. Now, you've got to bear it in mind, we got the endorsement deals going now, so I wasn't paying for anything, although that wasn't the reason that I changed. But I had trouble getting the rockers. They were just made for Ludwig. And then Bill Ludwig left the company when it was,
when they sold
the fellow from Monroe County. I think that's where the Ludwigs are made now. So that all fell because I had a deal directly with Ludwig for the heads and the pedal. So
you were speaking guy.
Yeah, I was speaking. I got one sitting on it. We'll see that later. I'll go and grab it. Well, we don't have to grab it. We know what he looks like. So the Emperors came out, and I fell in love with the Emperors, and I went back with Remo, and asked them if they'd take me back, and they were very gracious to say, yeah, come on. What do you need? And so then I went with those up until I changed to Code drum heads now, because Code do a silver dot, which is
silver dot.
very much like it's a 2-ply. Well, it's actually a single ply with the silver dot on top, but it's a hole in the middle. It looks like a donut. So we got away from the trademark infringement. And they're really, really great. They're fantastic for the tom. But here's the thing, see, I've got my square size drum, but I put an ebony black head on the bottom. It's just a trademark look, really.
Oh yeah.
But what that does is, because it's a bit thicker, it does choke the sound a little bit, but it makes it less resonant, would you believe, than a thinner head. Hang on, we got one right here. Look at this. Thank you, Judge. Here's one I prepared earlier. So it is here's the silver dot on the top.
Oh yeah. There's the hole in the middle.
And there's a little hole in the middle. I know if the boys and girls can see that. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. And then on the bottom we got the Code head. They made these heads just for me. You can't buy these actually. But that's my little 6" by 8. Obviously, you find what you love. But I was invited to join this company because they made this head for me. And it's a bit difficult when somebody goes, we made this head just for you. What do you think of it? And I put a set on the drums, not last year, the year before. And I decided to go with them. So these are basically a knockoff of a Ludwig rocker.
20.
It's got a hole in the middle.
and they sound great, obviously.
They do, yeah.
Charlie, you're an Evans guy?
I mean, I used to be with Remo back in the 80s, and then I switched to Evans. And the story with Evans was I'll tell you real quick. We were in the studio. We couldn't get the drums to sound great. We moved them from one part to another part and usually the studios will have the sweet spot. Well, we like the drums to be set up here. So, okay, let's put them there. They still didn't sound well. And it really, like, I remember being so upset about it because this was a brand new kit. It was the maple shells. Everything was perfect about the shell, but the heads just weren't happening. I took a break. I walked down the street to a drum shop, and the guy there who he knew who we were. I was telling him the story, and he said, "Let me give you a set of these Evans drum heads. Go put them on the drums. If you don't like them, I won't even charge you." You know what I mean? So we did it. We went back, put them on. Oh my God, the drums came to life. It was so amazing because I heard something that sounded like complete garbage to something that sounded like the drums were singing again. And that's when I made the switch. I made the switch to Evans right then and there. And to this day, they've been so consistent, and I get more shows out of those heads too.
And it went from unusable to sounding great. I mean, that's incredible. This is work.
That's exactly what happened, and that's a true testimonial. But as a drummer, I know you guys may feel the same. You're always looking for that perfect snare drum head throughout your career. Yeah, this one sounds okay for now, but then it loses something. Do you guys feel the same way about that?
Absolutely.
I mean, you have your favorite snare drum that you kind of bring everywhere, and it's tried and true, and it sounds amazing. And for some guys, that's a superphonic. I mean, it's a straightforward that Bonham's snare, but it is a combo of the two things, and that's part of the fun of being a drummer, part of the excitement that our instrument brings us, that we have a passion for, and that we are excited about all of these new possibilities. And every combination, you kind of start over again, even if it's the same drum, new head on the top, new head on the bottom, different snare strainer. Let's try a thicker one. Let's try a thinner one. Let's try a different strainer altogether to go with the thicker or thinner bed. And all of these combinations, and then when you finally get it, then somebody goes, well, what if you changed it to a control sound head instead of just a coded ambassador? Or what if you went with, and then that changes it again. It's all, like you said it best, Charlie. I love your description saying, it's like Christmas Day. And that's kind of like, as a drummer, we can have a lot of Christmas days because there's so many changes with just one shift. And it doesn't require a whole new drum for that shift. It can just be a head or an accessory. And then if you're just like, wow, this is a whole nother take on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, when you do a festival and you're playing outdoors, your drum sound changes. And they sounded great last night when we were in this hall, you know what I mean? And then today, why are they sounding so different? And do I have to adapt to that? So it's all these things, weather, that's another factor. You play in these festivals, you're going on late. The temperature changes from when you first started, during the day doing sound check. All these things are just changes the sound of your drum and the feel. That's the worst thing for me, the feel of the drum. Like, I love a good bounce when I'm, off the snare drum. So I don't like that real dead type of just thud. I like a nice jazzy type of bounce. And I know, Nicko, you're the same way. Your snare drum is you have the greatest crack in it too. It's tight, exactly. Like James Brown's drummer. It's just tight,
So let's go to your tom-toms. This is a 6-inch. I'll get it on the kit. I don't play it very often. Normally, I'll tune the bottom head a little bit lower. So, so that's my preference. So why I do that is normally people say you've got to tune top and bottom the same and you get the true resonance of the shell, right? That's the true vibration of movement of the air, having them both equal. Well, I don't dispute that. But then this doing it slightly the way I do, I still get the decay, but it's quicker. It's like it, that if I had these two drum heads tuned the same, it would be a longer decay.
Yeah.
Do you tune yours? How do you approach your tuning, Charlie?
Okay, so I usually tune the bottom heads just a little bit tighter. There's a trick that Neil Peart used on his one tom where he would tune the bottom head way tighter, and it's almost has like a timbali type of sound. Um,
Right.
and for the higher tom, I'll do that because I want it to be. I just want it to project a little louder than the next two. So for the first
Right.
tom, which is a 10, I'll tune the bottom. I'll crank it a little bit tighter than the top
Okay.
head. And I think Stuart Copeland did that too. He did the bottom heads a little tighter than the top. And Stuart has a
Right.
very, very, very distinctive sound to his toms. I don't know how he got this, if he stumbled on it, or if it was something that he just, kind of went through at growing up. Oh, I want to tighten my toms, but it definitely adds to the sound of his drums, and of course to the Police.
It's nice because it gives people, like the younger drummers, I hope that they're watching us here chatting about our love and our passion for the instrument. It's sometimes tuning drums is a bit like, what do I do? When I tune my drum set, I take all the top heads off, I put them all on the floor, and I tune each bottom head with the drum sitting on the floor. So you've got that kind of muted ring to it, and get the and it's like, if you think about do, re, mi, da, 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 and that's that's where I'm looking at. Bong, 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 dong, 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 that kind of situation, And then, kids that haven't got lots of tom-toms, although they'll say you got one up and two down. Now, one up and two down is one floor tom, one hanging tom, and a snare drum. A lot of people go, I play one up and one down. Right? I'm just going to go on a rant here, Charlie, for a minute, right? Another bloke goes, I've got two up and two down. That means he's got two floor toms and two top toms. But what about the snare drum? Isn't that on the floor? You've forgotten about the snare? Well, it's two up and three down, isn't it? If you've got two floor toms, you've got a snare drum. There's three on the floor, isn't it? I'm sorry. Don't get me going on that one. That's your identity as well. How you tune your drum set. It's quite important, isn't it? I like a slightly higher top head. You like a slightly higher bottom head than the top.
It's our instrument.
Yeah.
Tuning, I know sometimes tuning at the pro level, I rarely see this mindset, but at the more beginner level, it's a little more prominent, where the tuning there isn't enough attention paid to it, right?
Yes.
It's how important it is, and it takes the talent and technique to tune a drum, just like it takes talent and technique to play the drum.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we're starting out, we're not thinking about the tuning so crucially, but it's a crucial component to it's our sound.
For the Pantera thing, I use all roods because it's the only cymbal that has that glass type of cutting through sound from the rest of the band.
Another gong, right? At some point, this show might become like some offshoot of the Gong Show, which wouldn't be a bad thing, because that show actually worked. What's this gong?
Okay, this is another wonderful creation by Johnny Douglas.
Oh, JD did this one too?
Yeah, he's a genius artist. I mean, man, you check his artwork out. I guess he's got his own website.
Yeah, and he's got his own galleries all over the place.
Yeah,
John Douglas Art.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of his shows over the years. But anyway, John did this, and it's a bit worn out, as you can see. It's this kind of area here, and of course we got the growler Jaguar in the middle. Johnny painted this. It's on a reflected Paiste 40. I've always had a 40-inch gong. I did one tour where I went to a 50-inch because Kelly said, "Oh, I think you should put a 50-inch gong up behind it." We'll find out which tour that was, but this was basically
a Mayan calendar. There would have been a sun god in the middle of this, but we decided to use the growler jaguar, which he's been Eddieized, and this was
This is an Eddie Jaguar
Yeah.
Mayan image by John Douglas for Nicko McBrain.
Yeah, so this one got a clobbering. I think we did Prisoner back then, and I used to hit this gong at the end because you can. It's still got a good.
Yeah, it's not very muted from the art. It's true.
Yeah, it
still
still
sounds
got a
very
lot of resonance
yeah,
to it, and
it
it's
does.
got a lot of bottom end to it, and you can see where it's been clobbered. It's indented here.
Did you play it how many times a night?
It used to get. I think it used to get a clobbering twice through the set.
And what did you find when you deviated from the 40? That one time you did the 50.
Oh,
What?
well, it was painted. It was like painted like a blue and white.
Okay.
And it was like you hit it, and it was a boom. There was no resonance to it whatsoever. I mean, this one's cool, but
Yeah, this one's got nice resonance.
but then the
50
Legacy of the Beast one as well. That didn't really
Right, but that's
resonate.
back to a 40.
Yeah, that was a voice.
So the 50, what did you find? Just didn't.
It was completely there for the visual of it. You know, the way it sat below the drum set. I mean, this one was quite high. Well, hang on, is it whose turn is it?
I think it's yours.
Really?
Yeah.
You sure?
It really. I mean, I love Peisty gongs. I have two of them myself. I love Peisty gongs.
What size do you have?
A 32 and a 38.
Yeah.
The 32, and I'll tell you the story very quickly. The 32 was because I always wanted a Peisty gong, and I was playing such small clubs that the only one that would fit anywhere was the 32. However, all of my heroes played 38s, 40s, or larger. Alex Van Halen has like a 60, or so everybody was like 38 and up, but that would not fit anywhere that I was playing. So I got the 32. I gigged around when I was a kid with the 32, used gongs where I didn't even have any business using gongs, but they looked so cool. Oh, yeah. And they sounded so great when you started the set or ended the set with that gong sound. The whole place shook. This is the 2008, what tour?
Somewhere Back in Time.
Somewhere Back in Time, Iron Maiden. This was a snare drum. There were two made for the tour. Did the kit match this?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is consistent with the visual.
It was. There was a different design than that's on the snare drum, but the
theme.
The
was
theme
the
was
same. Custom painted. One of one kit.
One of
so
one.
Two snares, one kit.
Of one.
Okay, and this drum was made by Premier.
This is a Premier, yeah.
All right, but what's interesting is this drum was not played on the tour. It was made for the tour, but not played on the tour.
That's correct.
All right, so take us through it, Nicko.
Okay, so again, it's based on the signature Signia hardware on the snare. This hardware is like a mixture of gold and silver hardware. Yeah, we had the Eddie images on here that was on the bass drum. We had a different design on the drums themselves. There wasn't any different Eddies on, except for on the bass drum. So I remember at the first rehearsal, Bruce and Rod came in. It looks like a bloody Calypso kit. And I went, what do you mean Calypso? And he thought the drum shells looked like steel drums because of the artwork. It was basically, the artwork was on kind of power slave-ish, this Egyptian kind of theme and whatnot. Then Bruce came in and Rod said, what do you think of that? And Bruce was like, it looks like a Calypso kit. And I thought, I could swear blind that the pair of them are being cahoots. I mean, what are the odds of that? The pair of them saying it. They weren't over impressed with the drum set. But Steve, Steve was like, oh, yeah, it looks great, man. Don't worry about what they say, So anyway, that was the drum set we took off on the Somewhere Back in Time tour. And that was the tour that we used the 757 and flew the gear around the world It kicked off in
Flight 666.
Yeah,
that was the DVD.
I think we kicked off on Mumbai on that tour, and it went through April 2009, I think it was, at the BB&T Centre right here in Florida, in Sunrise.
I was at that show.
Well, you saw the Calypso kit.
I saw the Calypso kit, but I didn't see the Calypso snare.
No, you didn't.
Right, because this wasn't on it.
Right.
So what did you play?
Right. So I used the Beast, which was my Ludwig Supraphonic, 14 by 6. 14 by 6.5, not 6.5 by 14.
Okay, 14 by 6.5.
I had a moan at you lot about this the first episode, didn't I? Anyway, so the Beast was the snare drum I used on this tour. This snare drum came back home from England. It was in storage for quite a while. It's lost its snare.
I was going to say it might have been a clue that it wasn't used.
Yes,
by
brand new. Look at that head. It's not got a stick mark on it at all. And then, of course, it's nearly there. I'd have that cranked up a bit higher than that, and then the top. If you notice, even though it's not tuned 100%. That top head's higher than the bottom, which shouldn't be like that. Maybe what we'll do, one of the roll with Nicko, we'll take a snare. We'll actually tune it up for you, and you can show it. Bearing in mind that I've always really preferred a 6.5 snare, metal snare, and although I've had a 6.5 wooden snare made by BDC, and Sonar did actually do a snare drum, but they didn't release it, and that was a 6.5 based on the Nicko Sicko snare drum.
What's this made out of again?
Maple.
This is another maple.
Okay. All my Premier kits are maple.
And this is not painted, this is wrapped.
This is a wrap, yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that's a wrap for us.
And this is a wrap. I was going to say, that's right on cue, my brother. All right, guys. Roll with Nicko. And this is part 2 of the cymbal stand and all the things that we should be aware of. So you got to see part 1 because Nick got into some great tips, and then we'll pick it back up with part 2. Nicko?
Okay. Right. Something down here I prepared earlier. Now then.
Been up all night creating the cymbal?
Yeah, I made this. This is one I made earlier, yes.
Molten?
Right, so we discussed this section here, slipping up and down. But what I'm going to talk about this wear, tear and care section is what we're going to do with our cymbal once he gets put on the stand. Right, now there we are. Oh, I just knocked the microphone. So we got a nice free floating cymbal. We want to keep that for crash cymbals, most important. So we'll put this little nut on. Now we know we put the cymbal felt underneath, tighten up, that makes sure it's sitting sweet. Then we put the felt on, cymbal on, and another felt. This felt was made for me by BDC. It's an Icarus felt, and the reason it was made specially for me is it's got a hole wider, the diameter of this hole is wider than this nut. So when I screw this down, it locks on the top of the plastic section underneath, right? Now I can't turn it anymore. That therefore stops this bottom piece turning. But I've still got that happening on that cymbal. Now you may not have this facility. You may have a normal washer that when you turn this screw, it will hit the washer and compress the felt, and then you get the right tension. Now, if you have that, what will happen sometimes is this will work its way loose as well as this turning. See it's turning together? Look at that. And what happens sooner on? Now that cymbal's spinning round, isn't it? And also, sometimes what happens when your felt, you've used the same felt for a while, the cymbal finds its natural position on that felt. And so when it turns, see that turning? I don't know if you can see that. It comes up higher this side, then it goes down. It's like a warped record, if you like, but that's because the felt is warped. Now, so what happens as you keep whacking it, you're not noticing it when you're playing, unless you're Greg Potter. Their bless his heart. I saw a bit of video of him. This is what happened
We love
to him.
you, Greg.
But he was playing, and this happened to him. First time he hit the cymbal, what happened? This nut had got there, and he hit the cymbal. The nut fell off. The washer fell out. The nut, the fell.
And the cymbal fell off.
The cymbal went flying, and that was because if you look at here, what we were talking about in part 1 of wear and tear, this bottom section had spun up and everything had gone flying. So all they had to do was actually go up to the cymbal stand and do that and fly it back down to the bottom of the washer, put the cymbal back on, like so. Bang the microphone again. This is at least loud consistent. Stick the old top washer on and felt, and then put your lock nut. So there you go. That's one of the very, very important things you need to check out. If you haven't got the option of being able to wind your lock nut down to hit the top of the plastic sleeve and lock it like I can. This is why these are great. So there you go, boys and girls. That's my wear, tear and care part 2.
All right, so that's it today for Metal Sticks. Thank you for joining us. I'm David Frangioni. He's
Nicko McBrain.
the one and only. We'll see you guys soon.
See you later. God bless.
Metal Sticks!